Hello, good afternoon. Sekarang dah pukul 12. So good afternoon everybody and Assalamualaikum. Thank you MEFCAP for inviting me here again today. And this time just to talk to you about workplace and mental health. We focus on working from home. And then upon their request, we're going to touch a bit about in terms of how to recognize problems in children. Okay, as before, for the audience that is watching the presentation today, you are entitled to get a promotion. If you send the QR code, KPJ Damansara is offering some promotion for healthcare packages. And then I will put up the QR code again at the end. Okay, so this time, in continuing on with the theme from last week on sort of mental health, we're going to look at mental health in workplace. There were requests, especially in current time. A lot of people are working from home, and previously, I'm sure it will still be an issue. A lot of the people working are also parents. So one of the things that cropped up a lot was about screen time in children. So I'm going to touch on that as well. And on special requests about in terms of mental health issues in children, I'm not going to go into detail, but just in terms of recognizing symptoms and what to do as a parent. So it's more of a parenting angle towards the end. Just to recap from last week, I said that mental health problems is very common. 1 in 10 of us have mental health issues. And it's one of the highest burden of disease. I have subsequent slide that will talk about this in a bit more detail. Especially in current time, we know that in general population, there have been reports of increase in stress, depression, and anxiety. This is in general population, not just those people who are infected with COVID. Further on to this concept of burden of disease, I think is quite important, especially MEFCAP is financial related institution. How, for an illness or for a condition, to look at the impact of that condition, it's more useful to look beyond the death rate. There's cost implication. Costs that I will touch a bit later in terms of cost of sick leave, cost of reduction or loss in productivity, etc. So how do they quantify this burden of disease? Is through this concept of disability adjusted life years, which is known as DALY. So it came up by WHO and the World Bank. Essentially, all the condition, they look not at just mortality, but the sort of limitation and the impact on the individual, the family, the society, and economically. And what they find is that mental health mental health and neuropsychiatric disorder, which include addiction, is in the top 5 highest ranking burden of disease. So in Malaysia, the 7% of the current DALYs are due to mental health issues, or 8.6%, but globally it's 7%. There's been a study in the US that looked at, they asked a few companies across the US to look at the costs that the company spent on healthcare. They look at both physical and mental health. And what they find is the cost spent on mental health is, again, top 5, with depression and anxiety ranking in that list. What they find is that indirect costs, if cost of loss of productivity, people sort of tak pergi kerja, etc., it's actually a lot more than if the company were to spend on health insurance and medication. So actually, economically, it's more cost-productive if the company invests in addressing mental health issues. Globally, just looking at anxiety and depression, it affects, it costs up to about $1 trillion a year, significantly. Itu pun tak tengok other condition. We're not even talking about other mood disorder like bipolar or schizophrenia, etc. So work, pekerjaan, it's really important, in all our life because, kita spend a lot of time at work. If you Google up on the internet, they kata, on average, people spend 90,000 hours of our life at work ataupun about 13 tahun working, minus all the rest, etc. So a lot of our time is spent at work. Tapi what's the importance of work? Work gives us a lot of things. First, it gives us a sense of purpose or tujuan. It forms a structure and routine to our day. So kita tahu what time to wake up, what time to get ready to go to work, what time to come back. It forms that framework for your day. It also gives you your identity in terms of you as a person and also your social standing in the society. Because often, a lot of people, I know some work maybe less so, a lot of work involve talking to other people, being in a group of people. Work gives us that social connection. Obviously, kita orang semua kerja to make money so we can live, so work gives us money as well. And for those lucky one, and I hope most of you are, I hope you enjoy your work because that can give you pleasure and it become less of a work and effort kalau you enjoy your work. Being able to contribute to the company or to the society give you a sense of self-worth as well. So work has a lot of positive aspect for the individual. Tapi in the bigger society as well, there's positive aspect to it, not just in terms of social cohesion, but also from the financial and social development aspect. Tapi if you look at the population in general, Malaysia is very much in line in the world that majority of the population actually in the working age group. So it's no surprise that it is this group that may have more issues physically or mentally. They did a sort of studies. I think AIA also did a survey in 2018, and what they've across different companies, and what they find is more than half of people at work actually have some sort of stress, and also the other half, the additional half also have sleep complaint. And in terms of anxiety, depression is quite common. So 1 in 5 is macam 20%. That's quite significant. So this is diet between work and mental health. If you're working in a good organization, you're happy, it contributes to your well-being. But then, if you're not able to perform because you have mental health issues, it can affect your work. So here, we talk about kalau somebody is not in a good mental health well-being, it has the cost implication, as mentioned briefly just now, about burden of disease. If you're not well, banyak orang have to take sick leave, and this is known as absenteeism. Okay. But there's other common thing that's happening worldwide as well. People go to work walaupun they're not well, and they're not able to perform that well, so they're not able to be as productive, and the quality of work is affected. And also, if someone's not well, they're prone to accidents as well. The other cost implication of someone mentally not well, I think it's probably less so in Malaysia, but in certain countries, is this concept of costing the state or the country in terms of benefit. Somewhere in the UK, for example, kalau you tak ada kerja, the government still provide you some money so that you have something to live on. But don't forget the personal cost to that person who is being affected with the mental health problem. And there will be subsequent slide that showed that actually people with mental health issues are at significantly disadvantage when it comes to work. This slide was from last week. I tweaked it a little bit just to remind ourselves, sometimes with work, it's quite common to have stress, tapi kalau the stress continues, berpanjangan, then you can lead to symptoms of burnout where you feel tired, not bothered to do your work, not feeling motivated. And as a result, your job performance and productivity might be affected. You dah tak kisah with work, so not engaging with it. You stop sort of communicating with other people, and overall in terms of your, not functioning, not just from work aspect, also maybe socially or relationship. So I'm glad that MAFCAP, it sounds a very forward-thinking company, because I think workplace is is ideal in sort of promoting this culture of health, and health here, not just physically, but also mentally. And I understand here they do activities together that promote that. So, really good, really positive. It was suggested that if work address mental health issues, the productivity can be increased by 12%. And WHO, they speculated that if for every dollar that you spend on mental health work or mental well-being work, you can improve health and productivity by additional $3. Tapi unfortunately, with mental health issue, there's a lot of stigma. People sometimes feel shameful or feel guilty about raising problems when they have mental health issues. And unfortunately, worldwide. It's not just here, but unfortunately, there are these people with mental health issues sometimes get discriminated at work. And I'm not just talking about mental illness. People we spoke about last week about, there's a spectrum in between that people have. They might not be mentally ill, tapi they may have mental health issues. So OECD, I think a group of over 30 companies, mostly from the developed world. And it's quite interesting. I just wanted to share this with you. And basically, you can see the difference, disparity between people who have mental health problems versus people who don't have. And interestingly, even in developed countries, what you find people who have mental illness actually significantly affected by unemployment, as many as twice, at least twice. People with mild to moderate, not even severe, mild to moderate mental illness, more likely to be unemployed. So I probably think that it's very similar in this part of the world and other developing countries, maybe even more. So now, in sort of Malaysian context, and maybe putting some numbers, we acknowledge that there's a big, huge financial cost implication when someone is mentally unwell. Now, this was done in 2018, and they look at the bottom three numbers in terms of absenteeism, presenteeism, and the staff turnover. They look at the costs for the companies in general, and what they find in total that because of mental health issues, it costs as much as 14.5 billion ringgit at the time. Okay. And then when we talk about last week, when I put up a slide about definition of health bukan saja dari kesejahteraan, well-being dari aspek physical, but also dari aspek mental dan social. It's quite interesting, again, and I think it's acknowledged that mental health care has been taken backseat for many, many years. So from our Malaysian healthcare budget, only 1% is allocated to mental health care. I guess 99% goes to physical care code, or maybe, I don't know how much will go to social care. Anyway, this is as many as almost a third of people working here in Malaysia reported some sort of mental health issues. So there are a few laws, and I was more interested in this because I see patients in my clinic yang datang with work stresses, and then sometimes they want report, and I'm cautious. I'm cautious about, sometimes I don't want the report to go against them, and I wasn't aware in terms of what protection they have. So I just wanted to share with you that Malaysia do have laws that sort of as listed there, that basically said that it's the responsibility, tanggungjawab of the employer to provide optimal safety, health, and welfare. So keselamatan, kesihatan, dan kebajikan to their employees. Tapi for the employees, it's their responsibility to follow the health and safety rules. Okay. Tapi unfortunately, it seems that there is no law that protects people from unfortunately being discriminated if they have mental health issues. So the suggestion, and I got this from the website Relate, that they suggest to refer back to your employment contract and Employment Act. If you have any issues, seek more sort of legal advice. So I know it's a very wordy slide. I'm not going to go through it one by one, tapi just the concept in terms of at work, what can the organization do? So the culture and environment at work is important. And tadi mentioned that we spend a lot of our time at work. So Like MAFCAP, fantastic, you have room like this and the kitchen, the communal area, area that last time they kata, oh, you have water cooler chat, having that connection, having that space, allowing that, it's really important. I guess generally in terms of giving people a sense of ownership, a sense of that they're important to the work, that they're contributing to the work, that they are rewarded for their effort in the work, acknowledging not just in terms of saying thank you, but maybe acknowledging in terms of in your appraisal or review. These are important, and these are things that can increase job satisfaction. So, much last week I said, to reduce the risk of burnout is if the people are more satisfied with the job, then the risk of burnout can be reduced. Okay, but also the concept about all this training in terms of not just for the employees but also for the managers and leaders. I'll give you an example. As a doctor, we're expected to teach medical student dengan MO, dengan intern, tapi there wasn't any formal teaching training. So a lot of us learn on the job. And I imagine same goes with a lot of managers and leaders. They fell into it, they have to learn on the job. Tapi if the organization is able to provide that training and so that they feel a bit more confident in managing people positively, that will be a positive attribute to the working environment. And I mentioned last week we had the discussion, getting feedback, dapat feedback from employees, giving to their seniors or their bosses, and vice versa. Because normally it seems that it's one-way street. The more the junior dapat appraisal, dapat feedback from the more senior, but is the other way is also important as well. So, this was us last week in terms of what to do. So I wanted to just recap saja. In terms of, how can you tell if someone is not doing too well? Okay, so I mentioned just now in terms of less reduction in work productivity and performance. Tapi when someone starts to not coming to work, if you notice a change in their characteristic atau behaviour, for example, lebih senang marah when they normally quite calm, lebih senang nangis, when they normally quite, confident, it tells you something not right. Okay. Some people, normally they take effort, pakai makeup semua, and suddenly they let themselves go. What's going on? So those give you clues that maybe I need to find out more, or maybe I need to have that conversation with that person. So in general, in terms of what can you do as a colleague, okay? In terms of expressing your concern and support to that person, kata you notice a change, how best to help. And I think a lot of us get distracted, in terms of when the time that you spend talking to that person, making sure there's no distraction, not on your phone or not someone knocking. Like protect the time for that interaction between yourself and your colleague. This concept of active listening in terms of trying to pick up clues and piece it together. And the other thing that we in general, a lot of people tend to do is that when sometimes people talk to you about their issues, they sometimes just want to offload, but you assume that they want a solution. So sometimes, we assume. So maybe in terms of trying to find out from that person in terms of what they feel would be useful for them, rather what you think will be useful for them, and imposing your solution on them. And reminding them that you're here to help them in a non-judgmental, respectful way. So these are, whether it's basic or not, tapi it's probably worth spelling it out. Okay, so the next phase, I'm going to talk about working from home. Even before pandemic, the concept of working from home was, I think it's more of a modern concept, but it is there. A lot of people were working from home even before then. And I just wanted to list out the pros and cons at the time. Okay, subsequently, in the last year, we've been terpaksa kena work from home. I know now banyak companies now moving towards getting more people back at work rather than 30% capacity kan. So anyway, but before pandemic, certain group of people dah biasa not working in office. So there are pros and cons, and then I did a column in between that could work either way. Okay. So working from home, obviously, if you work from home, you tak payah commute, tak payah drive 1 hour pergi and 1 hour balik, stuck in a traffic jam. That potentially can make you more stressed. And it can give you flexibility to fit in terms of your life and your work. It can save money, I guess, tak pergi beli coffee or buy lunch, I don't know. But on the other hand, kalau you work from home, you do need like quite a strong self-discipline, because that's the work. No one is going to watch over you all the time to tell you what to do. I mentioned about boundary setting, not just setting your boundary, it's sticking to it. So I tried to Google up boundary ni apa. Okay, boundary they say sepadan, but it's actually limitation. What is your rules? Maknanya in terms of would you be working from home from certain time to certain time, or are you going to have a certain allocated space? And we'll talk about this in the next slide. So, but by having that sort of differentiation in terms of when you're at home and work, sometimes you end up working all day long and you forget that you have other things, or you might get distracted by other things like children and chores instead of working. So the other disadvantage kalau kerja dari rumah is that you don't have connection with other people, you're on your own. And then actually the advantage of working with other people is that you learn a lot, you pick up things from other people. And sometimes working from home, people think that you're not doing anything, because no one keeping an eye, and boss thinks that you have plenty of time at home. Tapi in between, in terms of it works either way. It can be stressful working at home, but it can be stressful working in office juga. So it depends on the person. And this work-life balance, some people feel that working from home gives them that balance. Some people feel that the balance disappear sebab you end up doing lots of work at home ataupun lots of household chores at home. And sometimes there's distraction. Some people say kat office banyak distractions sebab your colleague datang to ask you questions. But there's a lot of distraction at home, especially in the last year when children also kat rumah. So, it works both ways. So what do you do? I think, when you work from home, these are just some thoughts and repeated recommendation across all the different organizations in terms of how best to approach working from home. So number one, last week we talked about taking care of yourself. So don't forget to continue to look after yourself. You will see that it's a recurring theme, okay? Because sometimes we forget to have that time for ourselves or to recharge. Routine, schedule, boundary, ni semua lump in a same group. But sometimes we forget to put in terms of time for break. Sometimes we exceed the break time allowed. So I think having some sort of clear routine, I'm going to work from here to here, and I'm going to have a break, coffee break, and then, as you would at work, that could be quite useful. Especially when the children are at home as well, in terms of sharing with them, or your other half kata, these are my protected time, please don't disturb me. So people know what to expect. Okay. I think it's important to be reminded that it's okay, you're not to switch off from work. Okay, you don't have to be working all the time. Sebab the danger dengan laptop, dengan telefon, dengan messages and email is that you can potentially continue to work all the time. And just be mindful, being aware that actually you do need to switch off from work. I would say not all the time, but regularly, and that's why in terms of sticking to, what's the time that you're willing to work. There might be projects and deadlines sometimes that you might have to use extra time on that. That's okay, but as long as you try to balance it out. Also, creating that time where tak guna laptop, tak guna phone. In fact, TV also considered as a screen time. Giving you a bit of a break. Depending on your house situation, walaupun you probably live in a limited space, let's say an apartment, please don't use your bedroom for work because, again, one of the things that can affect sleep is that you want your body to associate bedroom for sleep. So if you can find other dedicated workspace, that would be good. Don't forget to remain connected with your colleagues. And don't be too cooped up in the house. Sometimes you need a bit of fresh air. So just in terms of practical things, but there's also things where the employers, bosses, whatever, can consider. One of the difficulty is that lack of communication or communication tak clear. What is the expectation? Just being quite clear. Some people have regular check-in period. Also, this empathy and respect. If you as a boss decided to send an email at 9 p.m., I hope you don't expect your employee to respond to that email at 9 p.m. I think in terms of, people need time to have a break. But, for both ends, to maintain their professionalism, being respectful when you communicate, whether in writing or through the phone or whichever way you communicate. I think be responsive to any communication, and I mentioned about having the regular check-in. Okay. Just for next couple of slides, just want to touch about screen time because I know a lot of us are parents. Because a lot of the things that crop up in terms of how do I manage children's screen time. In general, all the organization, Pediatrics Association of America and Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Association, semua said that actually children needs a lot of physical activities and a lot of creative activities. So they shouldn't be just on their screen all the time. In fact, they say that for those bawah umur 2 tahun, dia tak patutnya be on the screen at all, except for WhatsApp chat or FaceTime, but except for WhatsApp FaceTime chat with their loved one. And then for those above 12, dia kata actually there's no set time because I think they recognize banyak school these days ada guna iPad for online teaching, etc., online learning. So it's more about having that balance. And doing this, having to look this up, remind me as well, being a parent as well, in terms of being mindful of what I do because our children follow what we do. So because we are a role model. So kalau you on your phone all the time, they learn that's a normal behavior. So just be mindful in terms of people, your children will copy your behavior. So kalau you on your phone all the time, takkanlah you expect them not to go on your iPad because to them you can do it, why not us, right? But please don't use, again, based on the recommendation, some people put iPad or TV. Last time when I was growing up, it was more like a TV to leave the kids, leave the kids be entertained by it. Their recommendation actually, kalau the younger they are, there should be an adult that supervise that interaction and monitor the quality of the program or quality of the game that they play. Bukan saja leave them by themselves. Having a rule is really useful. For example, dining table, tak boleh ada phone, or no iPad. So that's like screen-free zone. Having some sort of family rule that could be useful. And the other difficulty is that having consistency, not just with the mak, bapa, but grandmother kalau dia jaga the anak, so that the child know that the rule is consistently being followed. Some of the advice, especially for children, is like no device 1 hour before sleep. So you take away their device, ataupun in their bedroom they shouldn't have device including TV. I think as a parent as well, being aware apa your children are watching and playing. Some of the games, they have elements of gambling, so you need to be careful. Some of the games or sites may have inappropriate advertisement for their age. So you do need to keep an eye. And one way to keep an eye about that is a lot of this time banyak ada parental control, that you can control what sites ataupun how much time they spend on it. Don't forget to talk about your children about internet safety. Because cyberbullying is very common now. It's just the same like any other bullying, and it can have significant effect on the child's self-esteem. And digital citizenship. I think these days people rasa like on Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, they can just put things without filtering through their brain. Maybe kalau you have that conversation, sometimes there's a bit of inhibition, a bit of stop. But sometimes we have a lot of keyboard warrior. There should be some rules and respect in that as well. And this is something that maybe need to share with the sort of the younger generation. Continuing on to that, just following from a request. Again, I'm not going to bother to read through the list in terms of how do you know that your child might need help? And the picture might be different, younger children compared to the older children. And sort of younger children in general, if you compare, if you have other children in terms of their developmentally, or are they talking at the right time, the umur 3 tahun masih tak talk, that suggests that something is not right. If they have sort of repeated problems like throwing tantrums or repeatedly tak nak pergi sekolah sebab dia takut, get into trouble a lot, get distracted in class. But the other thing yang we sometimes forget, a lot of children, not just younger children but adolescent juga, and also for old people juga, we forget that sometimes mental health distress can present as physical problems, macam gastritis, headache. Sometimes physical symptoms can be a sign of mental health issues. And for older children, in generally, because you know them already, have you noticed the change in their behavior, change in their social aspect, or change in their appearance in terms of mood, etc. And one of the things is that would be useful is sort of reports from, is it just at home ke, is it at school juga? So if you notice any of these changes, maybe you need to ask for help. But the other thing is sometimes all of us go through ups and downs. The clues to when you need to have to ask for a bit more specialized help if the problem has been going on for a few weeks, not just one day and then they recover the next day. If the problem is significant and that is very distressing, not just for them but for the family as well, and affecting their life, that your life disrupted and put on stop. So what do you do as a parent? First of all, obviously talk to the source, try to find out as much as you can. Show them that you actually interested to know, show that you understand and you're there to support them, to help them. For children, it's really useful kalau dah pergi sekolah or nursery to get feedback from other people, whether they notice the same changes. Because sometimes it's maybe the home environment yang contribute to the change. But kalau dia in different setting pun people notice the change, that suggests to you that something more than the situation that they're in. Get help, not just straight to doctors. Maybe some school are the counselors, or you can talk to people that like grandparents. Sometimes they're a bit more experienced. But if you need more specialized help for children, is pediatrician ataupun child psychiatrist pun will be a good option. And if you know what's going on, I think the key thing in terms of support and interesting about children. By the way, I'm not a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I'm more of a general adult, but I deal a lot with young people. So interesting about sort of young people and children is that if you look at a family, dia kata it's like a system. Like your body is a system. Ada liver, ada jantung, ada kidney. So if one system goes wrong, it will affect the other parts of the body. So in a family unit, it's the same. So if one member of the family, especially a child, there's issue with it, it will affect the other member of the family. It will affect the other sibling, and it will affect the parents. So that's why you need sort of more of a family involvement. And then sometimes we're a bit too fixated on the negative. Just it's worth reminding ourselves that actually they're positive as well. Everybody have their strengths, to embrace that. And again, don't forget to take care of yourself. Because in order for you to take care of other people, you kena jaga diri sendiri juga. So self-care again is important. Okay. So with that, end my talk. Again, for the audience, please scan the QR code. There's health packages promotion at Damansara Specialist Hospital.
Anyone nak tanya soalan? Raise it. Alright.
Thank you. Oh, so I should leave it on.
Yeah,
So I just leave this on. Yep. Okay. Any questions? No.
Doctor, I've got a question.
Okay.
What is it? Bila nak tahu whether it's too late to see a psychiatrist?
It's never too late to see a psychiatrist. It's never too late. I think in terms of if you need help, I think it's too late when I would just say, if the outcome is quite sort of negative, then it's too late when you did seek help and you do something to hurt yourself, I think. But then people still get help afterwards. So it's never too late. Yeah. Anybody? So I appreciate the organization here. It sounds have quite a positive vibes and sort of have this culture of promoting the well-being. It sounds like you have social activities together and you have talks that promote spiritual health and mental health now. I understand there's also physical health that this settings promoting, and things that's really, really positive. Yeah. Anybody? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
What is a personality disorder? Like,
Okay.
What is it?
Okay. So personality disorder is actually one of the diagnoses in ICD-10 ataupun DSM-5, which is a classification of disorder. So it's a recognized disorder. All of us have personality traits. Maknanya some people maybe quite meticulous, they're a bit obsessional. Macam doctors kena check and check, or pharmacy actually, pharmacists are very obsessional sebab they kena check, make sure the ubat is correct, the dose is correct, and you know, you can say that's you know, obsessional traits, tapi it doesn't translate to a disorder yet, because to qualify as a disorder you need a list of symptoms, and also when it starts, the other key thing is when it starts to affect your relationship, interpersonal relationship with other people, it starts to affect your social situation, and it starts to affect your work. So there's impairment because of your personality. You get along with people, you get into fight all the time, so each time you get fired, you know, and then you're not able to hold down a job, or you're not able, to hold on a relationship for a long time. So once it starts to have problems, that's suggests that there's issues. It's not. I'm always cautious because there's differing opinion. Tapi some people don't view it as mental illness per se, macam depression or bipolar. But it is a recognized disorder. Just like macam some people don't recognize addiction is a mental illness. The Americans strongly believe that's the case, but it is a recognizable diagnosis. Okay. So personality disorder is that you are born through experience, that certain way that you adjust and react to certain circumstances may inform your view and how you cope with things. Just to pick up in terms of, there are few personality disorder that people may be familiar with. Antisocial, people who are psychopathic, meaning that they don't know right or wrong, or they steamroll their own agenda. So there are also yang common macam people who are really obsessional, or people who are very anxious, and there's few others as well. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.